Hi, I'm Rob from We Keep You Cycling, and it's finally here, the Selle Italia Max SLR Gel Flow. It's nearly been a year since I first saw it, and finally Selle Italia has delivered. A little late, but better late than never. The Max designates a more comfortable, wider, more padded version of the already available saddle. You might be familiar with the Max Flight Gel Flow, which took the regular Flight, beefed it up, made it more comfortable, bigger cutout. Selle Italia has done something very similar with the SLR, however, they've made a few tweaks to the design. What you'll notice is here, I have the SLR Flow, and I have the Max SLR Gel Flow here. First, you'll notice the width difference. The SLR Flow is 131 millimeters wide, and the Max is 145. Not the same increase that you find on the Max Flight, which went from 130 to 150. So keep in mind this saddle's a little narrower. Selle Italia has gone with the 145 width because they believe that caters to more folks or a wider demographic. Secondly, you'll notice this cutout. It starts approximately at the same place, but then it's a lot wider, getting as wide as 36 millimeters at the widest point on the Max. The Flow has a narrower, doesn't really get too wide. On the SLR Flow, you'll notice it's on the firmer side of padding. It doesn't have a lot of give, more performance-oriented, less comfort with enough give as not to hurt your sit bones. But if you're looking for additional padding, the Max combines gel with a thicker amount of padding to nearly double the amount of forgiveness by doubling the amount of padding. The downside is it adds some weight, but unlike other saddle manufacturers, they haven't gone the route of making the padding squishy, so you don't sink into the saddle or have any negative drawbacks to the increase. Flipping the saddle over reveals something similar and two things different. They both have round Vanox rails. However, the shell is different. The SLR Flow uses a 30% composite for a lighter, firmer shell, whereas the Max is using a 10%, a little heavier, but a little bit more forgiveness in the nylon shell. The Max also picks up elastomer absorbers wherever the rails make contact. And the idea behind the elastomer is to dampen the road vibe to provide additional comfort. Of course, at a slight weight penalty, but that's okay because you're going after the Max SLR Gel Flow for additional comfort, not to buy the lightest saddle. The SLR Flow uses a small cutout. If I was to rate its effectiveness on a scale of 10, 10 being the most relief, 1 being no relief, this cutout here gets a 3. It adds a little bit of relief, but the reality is it's so small, most folks don't feel the cutout, they just feel the extra give in the shell. The Max, however, substantially larger cutout, and I would rate it at a 5 out of 10. It could be more effective if it went all the way to the nose, and that's one of the complaints I have with taking a traditional saddle shell and putting a big cutout. Once you hang off the nose, you have no relief. Here's the skinny on this saddle. It does everything they normally do with Max. Max means they go bigger, they go more padding, they increase the cutout. And if you take a look at the saddle through that lens, they've done a good job. The 145 width was a smart move, so it covers more folks. If they'd gone with 150, it wouldn't have fit as many people. They've gone with the concept that 145 fits the largest segment in a bell curve, approximately 70% of the population. Caution on that though, you may think you fall into that, but the law of averages doesn't always translate well into real world, and I've experienced folks buying on the law of averages and about half the time being wrong. So, I like this saddle. I wish Selle Italia had done more with it. I wish they had put a dip. But in fairness to them, it is in keeping with their Max philosophy, and they haven't deviated from that. I'm Rob with We Keep You Cycling, and if you have any questions about the Max SLR Gel Flow or any of the saddles we carry, drop us a line or email us info@wekeepyoucycling.com.